Oh, it's certainly chilly this morning. Autumn is upon us, and I'm actually hoping that's going to help my photography today. See, I'm carrying a black mist filter in my camera bag, and the reason for that is because I wanted to give one of these filters a go for quite a long time. Now, it may be that you haven't heard of them, and if that's the case, that's absolutely fine. Not a lot of people have. So a black mist filter is basically a piece of optical glass, same quality as any other filter, but what they then do is put some very small black speckles all over it to various densities, depending on what you go for. I've got some, I can't remember, I'll have a look in a minute. They're either half or quarter strength filters that I've got on me today. I've actually got two, so we might try something a little bit different later on with those. The idea behind it is it will actually soften your images a little bit. It allowed some of those highlights to bleed and take some of the edges off the shadows. And the idea behind that is you get that soft, dreamy, slightly ethereal look without having a blurred image. Yes, you can achieve this in post-processing, but for some time now I've been trying to concentrate more on getting it right in camera. Not because I'm against using effects in Photoshop and Lightroom, I'm certainly not, I use them all the time. But what I really want to do is get the very best I can get out of the image in the field, because that's where photography really is. I think this also fits in with what a lot of people are trying to do these days with their photography, which is get back to basics, get back to that filmic look, the days of 35mm medium format photography, certainly within landscape photography and maybe street photography, where you're getting that slightly more earthy, grungy, taken in the field look to the images. And I think that's probably a little bit of a kickback to the fact that photography, digital photography, and AI and everything has made everything so clinical, so sterile and almost too perfect. So I'm going to look for my first composition. So like I said, I'm hoping today that the weather conditions will help me a little bit, and I'm going to get a little bit of mist over the surface of the water, which might even add to that sort of misty, ethereal look. We'll just have to see how it goes. You can never tell, but I've got my fingers crossed. Right, let's look for that first composition. We are getting just a little bit of mist forming over the surface of the water. It's very lingery, it lingers, but it drifts quite a lot, so I'm not sure I'm even going to manage to capture it on film, but I like the scene that I'm looking at. There's the water flowing towards me. There's quite a lot of highlights on it, so I think I might need to try and control it with a polarizing filter, but I won't really know the effect that's going to have until I actually give it a go and have a look at it. There's a little bit of autumnal colour on the left-hand side, a little bit more in the tree canopy, but I don't want to go too far up because it's going to bring in some really bright highlights. But what I really wanted to do is get a light, airy feel, because although I'm looking into quite a dark scene, what I'm really thinking about is the way that this is quite a calm, gentle scene. I can hear the water running, and it's really quite relaxing. And that's what I want to come over in my photograph, not the dark in the background, but the light, airy feel, the lingering mist, the soft and gentleness. And that's where I think with these images where the black mist filter is really going to help. So I'm going to set the camera up now on the tripod, and we'll take some photographs with and without the black mist filter and just see what sort of impact that it actually has. But I'm quite excited about this photograph, so I will take you through the full setup and talk to you about the filter a little bit more in a minute. So I've taken a couple of different images, some with and some without the polarizing filter. The polarizing filter isn't really making a huge difference, to be honest, so I'm probably just going to go with it. It makes a slight difference, but not huge, but I'm going to use it anyway. Now, what we're really here to talk about is the black mist filter. So I could talk about polarizing filters all day, but there's plenty of videos on my channel about that already. So if you want to check those out, you're quite welcome to. Now, the filter that I've got here today is by a company called K&F. You may recognize their logo. You might understand it and hear it as being K&F Concept. Now, I do a little bit of collaboration work with them in that they send me products and I give them a little bit of review and some feedback on those products. Now, I am free to say whatever I want about them. There isn't any restrictions on that whatsoever, and I'm totally honest with them on that. Now, if you have a look at some of my other videos, you'll see that I've done some filter reviews on the magnetic filter system, and if that's something that interests you, please go and have a look at those as well. I will link to them in the comments, and I'll put the reviews up at the end. So, black mist filter. So it works pretty much like all the other filters that they've got in their range, in the circular range anyway. It's a magnetic version. I think there's non-magnetic, put my teeth back in. I think there's non-magnetic versions, and I'm not 100% sure if they do a slot-in square filter system or not, or whatever, but they do work in the same way. So they come in various strengths. This is a quarter. I use the 82mm system, and all it does is, like the other magnetic filters, it literally just snaps on the front of the filter. Now, the effect is going to be very, very slight, and I can't really see it or notice it when I'm looking through the viewfinder, to be honest. The actual overall view of the filter myself, it's the same real high quality as their other filters. It's lightweight, it's got a thin bezel, it helps with the vignetting, although you do get a little if you stack a lot of them things together. But I've got no concerns about the quality of it and the way that it feels, the knurled edges, the way that it handles. You know, I'm holding it with gloves here and it's quite easy to work with. So I'm quite happy with that. Actually taking it, it doesn't seem to make any difference whatsoever to the exposure. I was wondering if these black speckles would sort of affect the light going in, but I've seen no difference to the histogram when I've put the filter on front of the camera, which is really encouraging and quite good, makes it a bit easier to use. In terms of focusing and everything, you don't have to do anything particularly different. It's exactly as you are before. In this image, I'm shooting at f11. I've zoomed in a little bit on the camera to, what are we looking at? We're about 55 to 60mm, and I'm focusing about a third of the way into the image. All very standard setups for landscape photography. I'm taking, I've actually pushed the ISO up to 400 because it's giving me a little bit better effect on the mist, and also I don't want that water to be completely smooth. I want a little bit of texture and movement in it. So I've bracketed around 0.5 of a second up to, how does that work out? Up to maybe about 1/8 of a second, and then back down to maybe 1/2 a second as well. So we've got about 1/2 to 1/8 of a second exposure at f11. I may push it up a little bit more. I might try some different apertures as well. But whatever it is I eventually do in the end, I'm going to put those up on the screen for you so you can have a look at those final edited images. So I'm going to take a few more, and I'm sure there's other images to come up, other places where I can get some other great images as well. Remember, the idea behind this was to get that slightly dreamy, ethereal look, capture that mist a little bit, go for a soft, gentle image, and hopefully that black mist filter will help me do that. A slight mist, subtle colours and the cool tones of dawn, and the sprinkling of early autumn. I'm pleased with the result. The final photograph achieves everything that I had aimed for, but how much impact did the black mist filter have? It's getting a lot lighter now, getting much harder to actually find pictures and compositions and things I want to make photographs of, and I think that's because the light's coming up. That mist never really developed into anything significant, and it's kind of faded away a bit, so I'm struggling to find those pictures which really sort of intrigued me. So I'm going to have to walk around a little bit and see if I can find something else. I kind of want to take some monochrome images as well and just see how that works out. I've just come across a tree that I quite like, actually. I'm not sure if I can make a picture of it or not, or if it stands out, but I'm gonna see what I can do. You never know. It's probably not best use of this filter, but you know, I think maybe a monochrome, try and give it a bit of a film look. Maybe it'll work. We'll see. Maybe you'll see this picture, maybe you won't. I'm not sure about that last photo. In fact, the only thing I'm really sure about is that I'm not convinced that it's going to work out. Couldn't really resolve the way that the photograph was coming together with the composition. I really wanted to have that connection between that tree that was branching up away out of the scene and the tree with the sort of like stripped bark in the background, which I thought would look really, really nice. But the bottom right hand corner of the picture sort of spreading up diagonally to the center of the image, I couldn't resolve that space and it just didn't come together very well at all. So I'm not sure it's going to work. I'll probably put it up on the screen so you can have a look at it anyway and see how the edit come out. I did drop the black mist filter on. Maybe I'll convert it to monochrome and see if it gives it a bit of a filmic sort of look and see how it turns out. But I'll let you have a look at it and decide for yourself. My reaction when editing this photograph is best described as neutral. I had hoped for more, but what? It does go to show that in the end, no filter or edit is ever going to create that connection in your final image if it wasn't there in the first place. First, this kind of seems like an unlikely photograph to really use this sort of filter on. But one of the good things with a black mist filter is the way in which it diffuses highlights. So I thought actually I might give it a go on these leaves. Now they're starting to slightly turn on the edges to those nice autumnal colours, so I thought that gave things a little bit of a different edge compositionally as well. So I'm going in tight with the composition. I really want to concentrate on the textures on the sort of those leaves. But what I want to do is I want to sort of play with those highlights a little bit, because what we've got on here, because it's still quite early in the morning, is we've got some overnight moisture and dew that sort of formed on the surface of these leaves, and the light is up to me, it's sort of like up, the light is sort of like up above, coming straight towards me, but it's reflecting off the surface. The surface is a little bit too reflective in some ways, so it's kind of killing things a bit. So I have also taken some photographs using the polarizing filter on there as well, just to take the sheen off those images. You can see as I just sort of like just turn that filter around that actually you sort of lose that brightness on the top. But I guess in some ways that could defeat what it is I'm trying to achieve with the black mist filter. So we'll just have to see how that comes out, because what that filter should do is soften those highlights a little bit and give them a little bit more of a bloom rather than such harsh pin lighting, which I thought might give a nice soft effect to the top of these leaves. I'm not too worried so much about with focus stacking these. In fact, I'm hoping not to use the focus stacked version, because really if the edges are a bit diffused and it has that overall soft feel, I think I'm going to be quite happy with that. But just as a bit of insurance, I have done a focus stacked version as well, so I can play with that front to back sharpness if I need to. So we'll see how those come out. Like I said, polarizing filter, not completely killing the reflections, just slightly. Black mist filter just to give a little bit of a bloom and soft edge to those really quite powerful highlights. And we'll see how that works out. I'm pleased with the result. I like the shallow depth of field, and as such I did not bother processing the focus stacked version. But as for the black mist filter, to be honest, I couldn't tell the difference. A lot of photography is about problem solving. In fact, I think all photography is about problem solving. It's about balancing the different types of lighting that you get, about balancing the different types of composition, motion in the water, and different things that which just combine together to create those images. And this photograph here, it's quite difficult to take because it's getting a bit later in the day now. It's actually getting quite warm, and the light's getting quite bright and contrasty as well. And I'm hoping that's where the black mist filter is really going to come in and potentially make this image a little bit of a success, because as I've said with my previous images, one of the things it should be able to do is to add a bit of softness and a bloom to those highlights. Now, I've been using a polarizing filter, and one of the concerns I've got, am I actually diminishing that effect by using the polarizing filter? Am I stopping the filter from, the black mist filter, sorry, from doing what it's designed to do? I certainly hope not. But because of the contrasty lighting, without the use of the polarizing filter, I wouldn't be able to dampen down those highlights and control them. So I'm just hoping that's what it's doing. Anyway, I want to talk to you a little bit about the composition with this image, because I've got quite a bright sort of background and a dark foreground with this water rushing towards me. Now, I want the water to be reasonably soft and gentle. I want that texture in there that I like, but I also want that great sense of movement as well. But because it's quite a high contrast and because of the highlights on the rocks, I'm thinking maybe the filter's going to take that edge off. So I've done a number of different bracketed exposures. I've zoomed in a little bit from the 24mm. I've gone into, something in the order again of, let's have a look where that is. Something in the order of about sort of like 55, 60mm. I'll put the final details up on the screen when I show you the final images. And hopefully with a bit of luck, that's gonna just take out some of those distracting edges on the frame, which are a little bit light and drawing your eye away. I've got high hopes for this image. I'm not sure if it's going to be colour or black and white. It might be one of those images where actually it worked equally as best, but either way, if it's colour, I think I'm going to have to desaturate the greens a little bit, take some of the energy out of them to give it that calm effect that I'm after. But as I said, photography is about solving problems. So how I manage to sort of deal with the energy in the water and the calm look that I want to get as well is a little bit difficult. Hopefully the movement is going to cool that energy off a bit and give me some sort of idea of where we're going. Anyway, let's put this image up on the screen for you. Hopefully you'll enjoy it and have a look at it. I'm pleased with the result. I like the soft green moss covered boulders and how they work with the softness of the water. I think these complement each other. The photograph does have a soft and slightly dreamy feel. Maybe the black mist filter has enhanced this image. But my overall verdict on the black mist filter, well, it's far from revolutionary. Maybe I've not had or tried the filter in the right conditions yet, or even with the right subjects. I guess the story isn't over yet. For now, watch this video next, get out and enjoy your photography.